I thought my grandfather left me everything until I found a secret will proving my father and Fiancé had stolen it all. Then I found his will and realized my Fiancé wasn't the only one betraying me. My own father had been stealing my inheritance for years. The leather of grandfather's office chair still smelled like his cologne as I sat at his desk, sorting through decades of paperwork. It had been 3 days since we buried him, and my father had wasted no time assigning me to clear out the old man's junk while he handled the important matters of the estate. Emma, how's it coming along? Mark, my fiancé of 2 years, leaned against the doorframe, his designer watch glinting in the afternoon light. Your dad needs the office emptied by tomorrow. Of course he does, I muttered, reaching for another folder. Heaven forbid we take time to properly sort through grandfather's life. Mark approached, massaging my shoulders. Your dad's just trying to move forward. Grief manifests differently for everyone. I nodded absently, pulling open the bottom drawer of the desk. That's when I saw it, a leather portfolio with vinyl arrangements embossed in gold letters. NEPI was a document dated just 6 months ago. What's that? Mark's hands froze on my shoulders. It looks like grandfather's will, I said, scanning the pages. But this is different from what dad showed us yesterday. As I read further, the room seemed to tilt. According to this document, I wasn't just inheriting the small trust fund my father had mentioned. I was the primary beneficiary of my grandfather's entire estate, including controlling interest in Freeman Enterprises. That can't be right, Mark said, his voice oddly tight. Your father said the company was left to him? I flipped to the final page, where a note was written in my grandfather's familiar scrawl. Emma, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. Chad became an account statements. Trust no one, not even family. Tucked behind the will were bank statements showing systematic withdrawals, millions siphoned off over the past decade. Each transfer had been authorized by one person, my father. I need to call our family lawyer, I said, reaching for my phone. Mark snatched it from my hand. Let's not be hasty. Your father deserves a chance to explain before you make accusations. Something in his tone made me look up. The concern in his eyes wasn't for me, it was panic. You knew. The question fell from my lips like a stone. Emma, it's complicated. Family business is always. Did you? No? Each word felt like glass in my throat. Mark's silence was answer enough. I stood clutching the documents to my chest. I need some air. He didn't try to stop me as I walked out, but as I reached the hallway, I heard Mark's hushed voice from the office. She found it. No, the original will. Yes, she knows about the accounts too. Don't worry, I'll handle her. My father's voice replied, too faint to make out the words, but I'd heard enough. The two men I trusted most had been conspiring behind my back, stealing what was rightfully mine. I slipped out the side door, the weight of betrayal pressing on my chest. Everything I thought I knew, my future, my family, my relationship, had just crumbled beneath my feet. But something else was rising from the ashes. Determination. If they thought Emma Freeman would quietly accept their betrayal, they were about to learn how wrong they were. The coffee shop 3 towns over felt like the safest place to examine the documents I'd stolen from grandfather's office. No chance of running into family or their associates here. Need a refill? The barista gestured at my empty cup. Please. I pushed it toward her, then went back to spreading papers across a small table. I'd spent 2 days secretly copying everything in grandfather's hidden safe after finding a key taped beneath his desk drawer. What emerged was a meticulous record of theft. Month after month, year after year, my father had been transferring funds from grandfather's accounts to shell companies with innocuous names. Sunbright Holdings, Adger Investment Group, Meridian Partners. I pulled up the corporate registries on my laptop. All 3 companies traced back to one person, Daniel Freeman, my father. Hey, that looks intense. The voice startled me. I looked up to see the barista setting down a fresh coffee. Sorry, I wasn't snooping. Just noticed all the paperwork. It's fine, I said, attempting a smile. Just untangling some family business. She nodded sympathetically. Good luck with that. Family stuff is always complicated. Complicated was an understatement. According to these records, my father had diverted nearly $40 million over the past decade. Money that should have stayed in the family business. Money that, according to grandfather's real will, belonged largely to me. My phone buzzed with Mark's 15th call of the day. I sent it to voicemail again. Instead, I dialed another number. Freeman Residence. My mother's cool, composed voice answered on the second ring. Mom, it's me. I need to talk to you alone. I emphasized the last word. Emma, where have you been? Your father is beside himself with worry. And poor Mark, can you meet me or not? I cut her off, a pause. I suppose I could meet you for lunch tomorrow. But Emma, this disappearing act is completely the Italian place downtown. Noon. I hung up before she could lecture me further. My next call was to Patricia Winters, my grandfather's longtime executive assistant, who had mysteriously retired the day after his funeral. Emma dear, Patricia answered, sounding relieved. I was hoping you'd call. You knew, didn't you, about what Dad was doing? Patricia's sigh carried decades of loyalty and conflict. Your grandfather suspected for years. He tried to protect the assets he could. But your father, he was clever. By the time your grandfather had concrete proof, he was too ill to fight. Why didn't grandfather go to the police? Family pride, Patricia said simply. And he worried what it would do to you. He hoped until the end that your father would come clean. And the will Dad presented at the reading. Mr. Freeman updated his will last year, leaving controlling interest to you. He didn't trust your father to preserve his legacy. I stared at my coffee, watching ripples form as my hand trembled. I need your help, Patricia. I can't fight this alone. The next morning, I sat across from my mother at Bellini's, watching her cut her salmon into precise pieces. Emma, darling, this drama needs to end, she said without looking up from her plate. Your father is worried sick. Mark is devastated. And for what? Some misunderstanding about your grandfather's papers. I slid a folder across the table. Is $40 million a misunderstanding, Mom? Her knife paused momentarily, then resumed its rhythmic cutting. I don't know what you are talking about. The shell companies, the systematic theft from grandfather's accounts, the forged will. I leaned forward. Did you know? My mother finally met my eyes, her gaze steady. Your father built Freeman Enterprises into what it is today. Your grandfather may have founded it, but Daniel made it successful. Everything he did was to secure our family's future. The restaurant seemed suddenly airless. You knew. All this time you knew he was stealing. She dabbed her lips with a napkin. It wasn't stealing, Emma. It was claiming what he deserved and bringing Mark into it. Was that also deserved? A flicker of something regret perhaps crossed her face. Mark was meant to help guide you. Your father worried about your idealism. You needed someone practical by your side. Practical? I laughed bitterly. You mean someone who would help keep me in the dark while you and Dad stole my inheritance? Lower your voice, she hissed. This is hardly the venue. When did he approach Mark? Before or after we started dating? My mother's silence told me everything. I stood, throwing cash on the table. Tell Dad I know everything, and tell him I am not going to just disappear. As I walked away, my phone phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Ryan here. You are finally seeing the light about Dad. We should talk. My estranged brother, who'd vanished 5 years ago after a spectacular falling out with our father. Now suddenly, he wanted to talk." I typed back a single word. "When?" "So he literally paid you to date me." I stared at Mark across his immaculate living room, my hands clenched around a glass of whiskey I hadn't touched. Mark paced, running his fingers through his perfectly styled hair. "It wasn't like that, Emma. Not at first. Then what was it like?" My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. He stopped pacing, shoulders slumping. "Your father approached me at the charity gala before we officially met. He said you were brilliant but naive about business, that you needed someone who understood the corporate world, and the monthly deposits into your Cayman account were those for understanding the corporate world too." I pulled out the statements Patricia had helped me find. Mark's face paled. "How did you? It doesn't matter. What matters is that our entire relationship was a transaction." I stood, unable to bear sitting in his space any longer. "Did you ever actually care about me? Or was I just a job? Of course I cared. I care about you." He moved toward me but stopped when I flinched. "Emma, it started as a favor to your father, yes, but I fell for you. The real you. Which version is that, Mark? The naive girl who needed guidance, the heiress whose inheritance you were helping steal, or just the idiot who trusted you both? It's more complicated than you are making it sound. It's really not." I set down the untouched drink. "My grandfather trusted my father. My father betrayed him. I trusted you. You betrayed me." Sounds pretty straightforward. Mark's expression hardened. "What do you want, Emma? Money? Your daddy's approval? Because taking on Daniel Freeman is a losing battle. I want what's rightfully mine." I headed for the door, and I want every person who conspired to steal it from me to face consequences. He caught my arm. "Don't be stupid. Your father knows people, powerful people." I yanked away from his grip. "So do I. Emmy's with the sexy in the FBI. You destroy your own family?" His voice rose. "Over money?" This stopped being about money the moment I realized my entire life was built on lies. I turned to face him one last time. "Goodbye, Mark. I suggest you start looking for a good lawyer." I made it to the elevator before the tears came blurring my vision as I jabbed at the button for the lobby. The doors were closing when a hand shot through, holding them open, going down. A familiar voice asked. I looked up into the face of my brother, Ryan, 5 years older than the last time I'd seen him. His once clean-cut appearance had been replaced with a beard and casual clothes, but his eyes were the same sharp, intelligent, wary. "What are you doing here?" I whispered. "Figured you'd need backup." He stepped into the elevator. Also, I live in the building across the street, by watching Mark's comings and goings for months. The doors closed, leaving us alone in the small space. "You've been spying on my fiancé, ex-fiancé, I'm guessing." Ryan studied my face. "And yes, Shevin needed to keep an eye on Dad's puppet." "You knew about Mark?" Ryan's laugh was harsh. "Emma, I left because I found out about Dad's first shell company. When I confronted him, he offered me a choice. Take a payout and disappear, or face a fraud charge he'd manufactured. And you took the money?" I couldn't keep the accusation from my voice. "I took enough to start over and stay under the radar. But I never stopped watching, never stopped gathering evidence." We walked out into the bright afternoon sunlight. "Why didn't you warn me?" I asked. "Would you have believed me?" Ryan countered. "Dad spent years painting me as the family disappointment, the unstable one with addiction problems." He had a point. Our father had systematically destroyed Ryan's credibility before he'd even left. "Why help me now?" Ryan's eyes held a mixture of pain and resolve. "Because grandfather loved you, because you deserve better than what they did to you, and because I am tired of running from our father." A sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Ryan opened the passenger door for me. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere safe." He slid into the driver's seat. "Dad's going to come after you hard once he realizes you are not backing down. We need to prepare." As we pulled away from Mark's building, I glanced back one last time. Through the glass lobby doors, I could see him watching us. Birdie to my father, no doubt. I turned forward, a strange calm settling over me. "Tell me everything you know. That building there, Sunbright Holdings." Ryan pointed at a nondescript office in an upscale business park, and 3 blocks east is the registered address for Meridian Partnerships, all empty fronts. We'd spent the morning driving past the physical locations of our father's shell companies, each one legitimate on paper, but practically non-existent in reality. "I can't believe he's been doing this for a decade," I said, staring at the pristine glass facade, right under grandfather's nose. "Dad's always been patient." He started small, testing the waters. When grandfather didn't notice, he got bolder. My phone buzzed with yet another call from my mother. I silenced it. "She won't stop, you know," Ryan said, glancing at my phone. "Mom's always been Dad's best weapon. She knows exactly which emotional buttons to push." "She knew everything," I said quietly. "She sat across from me and justified it all." Ryan's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "Mom's survival strategy has always been to back the winner. For 30 years, that's been Dad." We pulled into the parking lot of a modest diner off the highway. "Why are we here?" I asked. "To meet with someone who can help us." Ryan cut the engine. "Dad replaced grandfather's attorney with his own puppet the day after the funeral, but the original guy still has copies of the real documents." Inside, a silver-haired man in a rumpled suit sat in a corner booth. Alfred Michaels had been our family's attorney for 40 years until my father had abruptly retired him. "Emma," he stood as we approached, his handshake firm despite his age. "You look like your grandfather. He would be proud of you for this." We slid into the booth across from him. "I wish I had better news," Alfred said after we ordered coffee. "Your grandfather's original will is legally binding, but the problem will be proving the one your father presented is a forgery." "We have the original," I pointed out. Alfred shook his head. "Your father will claim that's the forgery. It becomes a matter of who has more influence with the probate judge, and that would be Dad," Ryan muttered. "The larger issue is proving the systematic theft," Alfred continued. "Those shell companies were carefully constructed. On paper, everything looks legitimate. So we have nothing?" I fought to keep the despair from my voice. "I didn't say that." Alfred slid a flash drive across the table. "Your grandfather suspected what was happening. He hired a private investigator last year to document everything. That drive contains enough evidence to at least open an investigation." "Why didn't he go to the authorities himself?" Ryan asked. Alfred's expression softened. "He was trying to give your father one last chance to make it right. Then his health declined faster than anyone expected." I pocketed the flash drive. "So what do we do now?" "Now," Alfred said, "you need to decide how public you want this to be. Taking this to the authorities means exposing your entire family." Ryan and I exchanged glances. "Here is another option," Alfred added. "The company's 50th anniversary gala is this weekend. All the board members will be there. If you could address them directly, present your case." "Dad would never allow it," Ryan said. "He wouldn't have to know beforehand," I countered, an idea forming. The gala was grandfather's pet project. Dad's keeping it mostly unchanged as a tribute, to the founder's speech, which your father will give, Alfred pointed out, "unless someone else takes the podium first." I felt a the spark of the old determination that had once made my grandfather call me his little lioness. Ryan looked skeptical. Security won't just let you waltz onto the stage. They will if I am on the guest list. I turned to Alfred. Can you get us in? Better than that, the old lawyer said with a hint of mischief. I can get you backstage passes. I am still officially the company's general counsel until the board approves my replacement next month. For the first time since finding the will, I felt something like hope. We'd still need concrete proof to convince the board. The anniversary celebration is at the company headquarters, Ryan mused. Dad's office will be empty while he's glad handing donors, and the original financial records would be in his safe. I finished his thought. It's risky, Alfred warned. If you are caught, if we do nothing, we've already lost. I straightened my shoulders. Grandfather built that company from nothing. He trusted me to protect it. I won't let him down. As we left the diner, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Your father is willing to forgive this nonsense if you come home now. Think about what you are throwing away, Emma. I showed it to Ryan, who scoffed. Translation. They're getting nervous. Good, I said, pocketing my phone. They should be. The Freeman Enterprises 50th Anniversary Gala transformed the company headquarters into a glittering showcase of success. Crystal chandeliers had been installed in the main atrium, and elaborate ice sculptures decorated every corner. The irony wasn't lost on me. All this opulence, funded in part by money stolen from my grandfather's security. Chapine ahead, Ryan murmured, adjusting his bow tie. We both dressed for the occasion, me in a midnight blue gown I'd splurged on with my rapidly dwindling savings. Ryan in a tuxedo that made him look surprisingly like our father in his younger days. Alfred had come through with the backstage credentials complete with official lanyards that identified us as technical support for the evening's presentations. Mr. Freeman is quite particular about the audiovisual elements, the security guard remarked as he checked our badges. We know, Ryan replied with just the right amount of exasperation. This is our third run through today. The guard waved us through. We navigated the service corridors until we reached the executive wing, deserted now that everyone was celebrating downstairs. Dad's office is at the end of the hall, Ryan said. I'll keep watch while you search. My father's corner office was imposing, all dark wood and leather with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It smelled of his signature cologne, the same scent that had permeated my childhood memories of being lifted onto his shoulders, of being his princess. I pushed the thought away. The safe was behind a painting of the company's original factory, a combination of sentimentality and security that was typically Daniel Freeman. The combination, according to Alfred, was my grandmother's birthday, the one personal date my father never forgot. The safe door swung open silently. Inside were stacks of folders, several velvet jewelry boxes, and a thick manila envelope labeled Freeman Trust Original. I reached for it just as Ryan appeared in the doorway. Someone's coming, he hissed. Hide. I grabbed the envelope and ducked behind the massive desk just as voices approached. Don't understand why we're meeting up here when the party's downstairs. A woman's voice, my mother, because I don't want to be overheard. My father's voice, tight with anger. Have you heard from her? Emma's not answering my calls, but she'll come around, Daniel. She always does. She's been gone for days, Victoria. This isn't one of her little tantrums. I heard ice clink in a glass, my father fixing himself a scotch, his ritual when stressed. She found the real will, didn't she? My mother asked softly. The silence that followed confirmed it. It doesn't matter, my father finally said. The new will is on file. The judge is a golfing buddy. It's handled. And if she goes public, if she can prove, she can't prove anything. My father's voice hardened. Besides, who would believe her over me? I am Daniel Freeman. I've spent 20 years building relationships with every power player in this city. She's with Ryan. My mother's voice had an edge I'd never heard before. Your son has been watching us for months. Did you know that? Something shattered the scotch glass, I guessed. Ryan is a drug-addicted liability who ran away rather than face his responsibilities. My father growled. If he's filling Emma's head with conspiracy theories, he's not addicted to anything, Daniel. My mother's voice turned ice cold. He never was. That was a story you created to discredit him when he started asking questions. I pressed a hand over my mouth to stifle my gasp. Even my mother had believed the lies about Ryan. Don't be naive, Victoria. Ryan was a threat to everything we've built. Emma is now too. We do what's necessary. By we, you mean me. My mother's laugh held no humor. I am the one who lied to your father for you. I am the one who convinced Ryan to leave quietly. I am the one who vetted Mark as a suitable handler for Emma. And you've been well compensated for your loyalty, my father snapped. Have I? Her voice dropped lower. Because from where I am standing, I've given up my children for your ambition, and I am starting to wonder if it was worth it. This is hardly the time for a conscience, Victoria. Maybe it's exactly the time. A chair scraped across the floor. The Martini's deal closes tonight. Doesn't it? That's the real reason for this gala. One final score before you sell the company out from under your father's legacy. My blood turned to ice. He was selling grandfather's company. The Martinses are offering $400 million, my father said defensively. The board will never reject that kind of offer. Teresa Martinez just happens to be Mark's ex-girlfriend's mother, my mother noted. Convenient timing. Business is business, my father replied dismissively. Now pull yourself together. We have guests to entertain. The door closed behind them, leaving me shaking behind a desk. I waited 30 seconds before emerging. Ryan slipped back into the room. Did you get it? I nodded, clutching the envelope, and I heard everything. Dad's selling the company tonight to the Martinses. Ryan's expression darkened. Mark's connections should have seen that coming. Mom knows everything, I continued, still processing what I'd heard. She always has. She helped him create the lies about you. Pain flashed across Ryan's face. I'm not surprised. Mom's always played both sides. A commotion in the hallway cut our conversation short. Security guards appeared in the doorway, followed by my father. There they are, he said, pointing at us with a look of calculated concern. My poor daughter, she's been under such strain since her grandfather's death, and my son. Well, his issues are well documented. Please remove them before they embarrass themselves further. Dad, you can't, I started. Emma has been struggling with reality since finding out she wasn't the primary beneficiary of my father's will, he told the guards loudly. We've been trying to get her help. That's a lie, Ryan shouted as security moved toward us. My father turned to address the small crowd that had gathered in the hallway. Please, give us some privacy. This is a difficult family matter. You are selling grandfather's company, I accused, my voice carrying down the corridor. You've been stealing from him for years. My father's expression didn't change, but his eyes turned glacial. You see paranoid delusions? Please, take them out the service entrance. No need to disturb our guests. As security escorted us away, I clutched the envelope tighter. We'd gotten what we came for, but the public confrontation had failed spectacularly. My father had outmaneuvered us again, painting me as unstable and Ryan as unreliable in front of witnesses. Outside in the cool night air, Ryan Ryan kicked a trash can in frustration. Now what? I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were financial records, the original will, and something unexpected, a letter addressed to me in my grandfather's handwriting, dated 1 week before his death. My dearest Emma, it began. If you are reading this, then you've discovered the truth about your father, and you'll need an ally more powerful than he is. Calvis number. Mr. Harold Grant will see you now. The receptionist led us through massive oak doors into an office even more impressive than my father's. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city with Freeman Enterprises headquarters visible in the distance. The man who rose from behind the desk was in his 70s, with a shock of white hair and eyes that missed nothing. He extended his hand first to me, then to Ryan. Joseph Freeman's grandchildren, he said, his voice a gravelly rumble. I've waited a long time to meet you both. Harold Grant was my grandfather's oldest friend and fiercest business rival. For 50 years, they had competed aggressively while maintaining a personal friendship that baffled everyone in their industry. Thank you for seeing us on such short notice, I said, sinking into a leather chair across from him. Your grandfather told me this day might come. He suspected what Daniel was doing for years, but couldn't bring himself to believe his own son would betray him so completely. But he prepared for it anyway, Ryan said, gesturing to the envelope of evidence we'd brought. Grant nodded. Joseph was an optimist, but never a fool. Now tell me about this sale to the Martinses. I explained everything we'd overheard. The $400 million offer, the board vote scheduled for tomorrow, the connection to Mark. Grant listened intently, occasionally making notes. When I finished, he steepled his fingers beneath his chin. Teresa Martinez has been trying to acquire Freeman Enterprises for 15 years, he said. Your grandfather refused every offer, no matter how generous. He built that company to last generations, and now it's being sold to finance my father's exit strategy, I said bitterly. Perhaps not. Grant opened a drawer and removed a thick folder. Your grandfather came to see me 6 months ago when his health began to fail. He asked me to hold something in trust for you. He slid the folder across the desk. Imply was a document that made my breath catch. A transfer of 30% of Freeman Enterprises stock to me. But this isn't reflected in any of the company records, I said, confused. Because it wasn't processed, Grant explained. Your grandfather transferred the shares to a holding company owned by me, with instructions to convert ownership to you upon his death, or when you turned 30, whichever came last. Ryan leaned forward. So Emma actually owns 30% of the company right now? Technically, I do, Grant corrected. Your grandfather was protecting these shares from your father's influence. Hope surged through me. With 30%, I could block the sale. You would still need allies on the board, Grant cautioned. Your father's influence runs deep, but we have evidence of his embezzlement, Ryan pointed out. And I have relationships with every board member. Relationships your father has worked hard to damage over the years. They might be interested to learn how Daniel has been operating. He reached for his phone. Give me 24 hours to arrange a meeting. In the meantime, my security team will ensure you are both safe. Safe? I echoed. Your father has millions of reasons to make sure you don't interfere with this sale, Grant said bluntly. I promised Joseph I would protect you, and I intend to keep that promise. The next morning found us in Grant's private conference room with 5 of the 7 Freeman Enterprises board members. The remaining 2, Grant informed us, were firmly in my father's pocket and hadn't been invited. I presented the evidence methodically, the fraudulent will, the shell companies, the systematic theft, and finally the secret stock transfer that made me the company's largest individual shareholder. When I finished, the boardroom was silent. Barbara Chen, the longest-serving board member, removed her glasses. I had my suspicions about Daniel for years, but without proof. She turned to Grant. You verified all this? My legal team spent the night authenticating every document, Grant confirmed. Daniel Freeman has been embezzling from his own father's company while systematically lying to all of you about its financial health to facilitate the sale. Why would he sell to Martinez? Another board member asked. They're our biggest competitor. Because Teresa Martinez isn't buying the company to run it, I explained. She's buying it to dismantle it and absorb the valuable parts. My father gets his payout and walks away clean, or so he thought. We need to contact the authorities, Barbara said firmly. First, we need to stop the sale, Grant countered. Emma is prepared to formally claim her shares and vote against the Martinez offer, but she'll need your support. One by one, the board members nodded. I've known Joseph Freeman since we served on the Chamber of Commerce together 30 years ago, said Walter Diaz, the board's eldest member. I cannot in good conscience allow his son to destroy his legacy. My phone buzzed with a text. It was from Patricia, my grandfather's former assistant. Your father just called an emergency board meeting for 2 p.m. today. He's moving up the vote. I showed the message to Grant, who immediately stood. We need to move now. Can everyone make it to Freeman headquarters by 1:30? The board members all nodded, gathering their things with newfound urgency. As we rode in Grant's limousine toward the confrontation that would decide my grandfather's legacy, I felt strangely calm. For the first time since binding the will, I was no longer reacting to my father's moves. I was making my own. Are you ready for this? Ryan asked, his expression concerned. I reached over and squeezed his hand. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. The Freeman Enterprises boardroom fell silent as I walked in, flanked by Harold Grant, Ryan, and the 5 board members who had joined our cause. My father stood at the head of the table, mid-sentence, in what appeared to be his sales pitch to Teresa Martinez, who sat opposite him with a team of lawyers. Next to my father stood my mother, her composure slipping visibly at the sight of us, and beside her, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, was Mark. Emma, my father recovered first, his smile not reaching his eyes. This is a private board meeting. Actually, Barbara Jen interjected. Miss Freeman has every right to be here as the company's largest individual shareholder. My father's smile froze. I am afraid here has been a misunderstanding. My daughter doesn't own any shares in Freeman Enterprises. Harold Grant stepped forward, placing a document folder on the table. These transfer certificates say otherwise, Daniel. Your father was more strategic than you gave him credit for. Teresa Martinez, a sharp-featured woman in her 60s, leaned forward with interest. What exactly is happening here, Daniel? Nothing that will affect our deal, my father assured her smoothly. Just a family misunderstanding. It's considerably more than that, I said, addressing the room. This meeting was called without proper notice to all board members to vote on a sale that would